What's going on? A to Z Sports, Sam Phelan here with you. Talking trades. We're talking Myles Garrett. That's right. The Cleveland Browns star edge rusher has requested a trade. And obviously, the Tennessee Titans are a team that are being brought up as a potential landing spot. Why? Well, a need at edge rusher. They have the first overall pick in the draft. We're here to talk about it and break it down. I will let you know, number one, what is it going to cost the Titans? We're going to be very realistic. I'm going to be kind of harsh with Titans fans out there about what this would take to get done. And then number two, we'll talk and figure out, is this even a possibility? Could this even possibly happen? Before we get into all of the stuff today, want to remind you that I'm brought to you, as always, by my friends over at Lipscomb University and the Sport Analytics Department, where data meets the game. Get off the sidelines and into action with Lipscomb's Sport Analytics program. That's where you will learn to make the calls that count. Lipscomb University's Sport Analytics program is turning sports fans into data-driven decision makers in the exciting world of professional athletics. At Lipscomb, they're not just watching the game, they're changing how it's played. So turn your passion for sports into a profession by going beyond the box score with Lipscomb at Lipscomb University. Go check them out. Okay. Let's talk Myles Garrett. Let's talk what came out on Monday morning when the NFL world was taken by storm by Myles Garrett's statement requesting a trade from the Cleveland Browns. You see it there. As a kid, dreaming of the NFL, all I focused on was the ultimate goal of winning a Super Bowl. And the goal fuels me today more than ever. My love for the community of Northeast Ohio and the incredible fan base of the Cleveland Browns has made this one of the toughest decisions of my life. These past 8 years have shaped me into the man that I am today. While I've loved calling the city my home, my desire to win and compete on the biggest stages won't allow me to be complacent. The goal was never to go from Cleveland to Canton. It has always been to compete for and win a Super Bowl. With that in mind, I have requested to be traded from the Cleveland Browns, signed Myles Garrett. There it is, folks. Not a huge surprise, I don't think. Myles Garrett, 29 years old now, has over 100 sacks in 8 years in the NFL, a future Hall of Fame trajectory, a former Defensive Player of the Year, 4-time All-Pro, 6-time Pro Bowler, one of the best defensive players in the sport. Only 2 years remaining on his contract. At the end of 2026, Garrett will be an unrestricted free agent. It makes all the sense in the world. We've seen some of these pass rushers, they get to 31, 32, they start to fall off just a little bit. Myles Garrett is still in his prime, still doing it at a very, very high level. And I don't think anybody can blame him for not wanting to waste more years of his career where he's playing at the top of his game in Cleveland, where they're getting ready to go under another big rebuild. They had that one playoff appearance with Joe Flacco in 2023. Things went horribly for them in 2024. Who knows if they'll be able to get out from under the Deshaun Watson contract. So here is Myles Garrett requesting a trade. Makes sense. The Browns said that they had no intention of moving Garrett. We'll see about that, right? I feel like a player tends to find their way out of these scenarios more often than not, especially when this is not contract related. This is not a guy who's just like, hey, pay me. He just wants to go play somewhere else. And there's a lot of value that you can get for Garrett. Now, naturally, right, the Titans were brought up as a potential landing spot because we know edge rusher is a need. That's up there. There's rumors that the Titans could stick at 1-1 and just pick Abdul Carter because it's that big of a need for the Titans right now. So Myles Garrett, does it make sense? I think on paper, sure. Just the idea of Myles Garrett, the player, makes a lot of sense. But this would obviously require the Titans to give up the first overall pick in the draft in a trade. I do think, however, people are sort of underestimating the cost that it will take to go and get Myles Garrett because the Browns picked number 2 overall. So your pick swap at the top of the draft doesn't really matter all that much. All it does for Cleveland is give them the ability to choose whatever quarterback they want for sure. I don't think you can get away with this trade if you're the Titans and not give up additional draft capital, a lot of additional draft capital, not just like there has to be more. It's got to be a lot more. So What would this trade look like? I use the Fitzgerald-Spielberger point system developed in the drafting stage to generate what a mock trade that sends Myles Garrett to Nashville would look like. And bear with me here because I'm going to walk you through it. Here was the trade that I came up with. This is what I think it would be close. Honestly, the Titans might be getting out a little bit cheap here. Number 1 overall, number 35 overall, number 102 overall, and next year's first round pick. That is a lot. That is the Titans' first 3 picks in this year's draft and their first rounder next year for number 2, number 202, a 4th, and Myles Garrett. It's not what Titans fans were probably expecting. That is a lot of draft capital to give up, but let me walk you through it, okay? Diana Russini, well-respected, renowned NFL reporter, said that she got a text from an anonymous GM that said the value was probably a 1+. And then this is a text from one NFL GM to Diana Russini about a Myles Garrett trade. Quote, probably a 1+. Can't wait for the it will be 3 1s crowd. Not happening. A 1 and a 2, 1 and 2 3s, throw a player in there. So it's not going to be 3 1s, right? Not 3 first-round picks. But realistically, it is a first-round pick and a second-round pick, or a first-round pick and a couple third-round picks and maybe a player. Myles Garrett, not cheap, okay? Keep that in mind. Using this method, using the Fitzgerald-Spielberger point system, let's look at it. 3,000 points for the first overall pick, 1,200 points for the 35th overall pick, 656. Next year's first is worth 1,244, which is honestly probably undervaluing next year's first a little bit. It's about 6,100 points. You see the value there. So 6,100 points, that is what the Titans are giving to the Browns. You see that 3,500 points at the bottom. That is what the Browns would be giving back to the Titans. Number 2, number 202, and a 4th rounder for Myles Garrett. That leaves about a 2,600 point difference. Well, what is 2,600 points? It is either the number 2 overall pick in the draft is valued right at 2,600 points, or the 16th overall pick and the 48th overall pick. So a mid-first and a mid-second is right around 2,600. So if we're using, and granted, these things are not gospel, but there are front offices that use models similar to this one. If we're using this model, it is a trade similar to this for what it would take the Titans to get Myles Garrett. The Browns get to go up 1 spot, get the quarterback of their choosing. It gives them a 3rd pick in the top 35 of this year. They add a 1st rounder next year. There can be some value there. They get out from the Garrett contract as well and gain some cap space. Not that that's a bad contract by any means, but it is $25 million in APY off the books. Okay. So what do the Titans get out of this? Well, they get not just 1, but 2 premium players. They get Myles Garrett, and they still have the 2nd overall pick in the draft. They still get to add an elite player. So I guess instead of picking at 35, right, you're getting to pick at 1 and 2 because you're picking Myles Garrett at 1, and you still get a pick at 2. You could potentially double dip and go Myles Garrett, Abdul Carter, scary edge rusher play. You could go Myles Garrett and take a quarterback still. You could take Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward and have a quarterback and an edge. So for all of those football reasons, there's value to both teams here. This is not going to happen, though. I want that on record. I don't think Myles Garrett will get traded to the Tennessee Titans at all. Why? Well, because of what we know about Mike Borgonzi. Because Mike Borgonzi has already told us time and time again, the Titans are going with this draft and develop plan. Their goal is to get as many picks as possible, to not spend big in free agency. So taking on a player who's already making $25+ million, as great as Myles Garrett might be, I don't think that's the type of roster construction the Titans want. They want the draft and develop sustainable success business plan. And you don't do that losing draft picks and coming out of this year with you'd pick at number 2 overall. Your next pick wouldn't be until deep into the 4th round. And you would lose your first rounder next year. That's a tough sell for a new GM. Not to mention, hey, Myles Garrett wants to go win a Super Bowl. So the fit in Nashville, there really isn't one. I get why everybody is drawing that line, Myles Garrett to the Titans, because, hey, team with the number 1 overall pick that has a needed edge rusher, that makes a lot of sense. That's not what we're looking at for me. Look at 2018 Chicago Bears, Oakland Raiders. That's more of a barometer. A team in Chicago that was building for a year that they were trying to be successful, and they were trying to put themselves over the edge. So they trade for Khalil Mack with the Raiders, who's a year removed from a defensive player of the year, who's a under 30 player. They pay Khalil Mack, they trade for Khalil Mack. They give up a couple first-round picks in the trade. Expensive trade for Chicago, but brought them, a stud in Khalil Mack and helped them make the playoffs that year. Look for some of these teams that are in that range of trying to push themselves above the edge into contention to maybe make this big move if you're looking to add an absolutely game-changing, difference-making player. But this is what it would cost. I don't see this happening. So I'm going to go ahead and put to bed Myles Garrett to Nashville. That's all for me today. Thanks for tuning in. And once again, thank you to my friends at Lipscomb, the sport analytics department where data meets the game. Go check them out if you want to work in sports and turn your passion into profession. For A to Z Sports, I'm Sam Phelan. We'll see you next time.